here or there, but popular esports titles are constantly changing in wild and drastic ways. New and updated characters, changed items, and entirely different elements of a map, just a handful of ways that a game can change multiple times in a year. With patches occurring at least once a month, the metagame of League of Legends never stays the same for too long. Players and teams are in constant battle to discover the new, optimal strategy that will give them the edge in their next encounter. Sometimes these discoveries and innovations can mean the difference between battling for a world championship or watching the action unfold from home. It's all a game of adaptation and innovation. And today, we're going to take a look at some of the greatest innovators in the history of competitive League of Legends. Now, let's jump into the video.
Number 1. The birth of counter jungling. A key part of the game today, applying pressure on the opposing jungler, wasn't considered a must-have. In fact, before Moscow 5 entered the scene, junglers would largely stick to tank champions and only rarely venture into the opposing jungle. The likes of Brian the Odd One Wily and Stefan Snoopy Ellis reigned supreme with their slower style. Their champion pools consisted largely of mega tanks designed to eat jungle camps and peel for their carries later on in the match. But the Russian side changed that, and specifically Danil Diamondprox Reshetnikov. His approach to counter jungling saw him specifically look to engage, fight, and eliminate his opposing jungler, giving his side complete control of the map. Utilizing the likes of Lee Sin and Evelynn, Diamondprox came out looking for blood every single match. His aggression took the scene by storm, leading to a period of dominance for Moscow 5, while other teams struggled to adapt to the superior style. The entire team was built around this jungle domination, with Diamondprox at the center of it all. His style caught on and is now considered the norm over 8 years later. But Diamondprox will always be the king of the counter jungle. Genja, the Time Traveler. Although he may never be remembered as one of the all-time great ADCs, Evgeny Genja Andryushin has certainly cemented his place in the League of Legends history books. It's hard to tell if Genja was brilliant, insane, or simply both. The Russian player is credited with several innovations in the bottom lane, including, but not limited to, Urgot as an ADC, using Trinity Force on almost any champion, triple Doran's Blade, the Legolas Varus build, and even utilizing Wriggle's Lantern as an AD carry item. Often, pundits and players alike dismissed his ideas when first used, but would soon find themselves having to eat their words and conform to his bizarre builds as they became the meta picks. Throughout his career, Genja's influence on the AD carry role simply kept growing. He brought innovations to the role as a supportive player, where he complemented his aggressive teammates by utilizing champions like Kog'Maw, Varus, and Corki to stay safe while still pumping damage. And later on in his career, he was forced to become a more front-footed player, where he showcased his ability to play as a central carry by shifting his item builds and playstyle as and when it was needed. And shortly after the departure of key players and the subsequent decline of Moscow 5, then called Gambit Gaming, Genja quietly retired and disappeared entirely from the League of Legends esports scene, cementing his legacy as a key member for one of the greatest Western lineups of all time, and perhaps the most eccentric player to ever grace Summoner's Rift. But then again, there was his top laner Darian, but we won't talk about him. World Elite lane swaps. When Counterlogic Gaming EU ventured to South Korea for a tournament in 2012, they were taken aback when presented with an entirely new method of playing League of Legends, when scrimming Chinese team World Elite. Their opponents had sent their AD support combo to the top lane and their top laner down into the bottom lane to face a 1v2. Mitch Krepo-Vorspuls recalls thinking that World Elite were potentially trolling, only for the Chinese team to confirm that no, this was indeed a legitimate strategy that they were trying out. And over the years, the art of lane swapping has been altered, improved, and adapted by various different teams with subtly different styles. But up until the introduction of turret plating, it had remained a strategy that often found itself recycled into the playbook every year or two. Lane swapping in general applies insurmountable pressure on the opposing top laner, with the AD carry, support, and jungler hard pushing the lane to enact an early tower dive, grab a kill, and a tower lead. This leads to a variety of counterplay that involves supports and top laners laning together, AD carries facing off in solo lanes against top laners, and tower dives happening all over the map. Now, Chinese League of Legends teams became dominant during this meta when they completely mastered the art of tower diving, knowing when and how to execute onto the opposition much more cleanly and efficiently than most Western lineups, and even the historically dominant Korean teams. The introduction of turret plating and the emergence of teleport as a summoner spell has largely halted the use of lane swaps for the past couple of years. But there's no doubt that the strategy played a massive part in the evolution of the macro game of League of Legends. Europeans, the current meta. Believe it or not, League of Legends hasn't always had the clearly defined roles that we see today. Top lane, jungle, mid lane, AD carry, and support is an invention of European players during the latter stages of the first ever ranked season. Early competitive compositions included 1-1-1 with 2 roaming playmakers, double bruiser bot lane, and AD carries dominating the mid lane. It wasn't until the first ever World Championship that the superior team composition became obvious. The European teams in attendance all opted for the ranged AD carry and support in the bottom lane, and an AP carry in the middle. 2 European teams made the grand final, and thus the optimum strategy was born. To this day, despite the odd curveball here and there, almost every meta is simply a variation of the one created back in 2010. In many ways, this is the ultimate innovation in League of Legends history. With Riot Games unlikely to deviate too much from the current meta themselves, it would be a surprise if there was a more efficient way to play the game. But with the amount of brainpower devoted to outthinking opposition, players, coaches, and analysts, you never know when something new might pop up and change everything. Team Curse Import. In June 2013, Team Curse became pioneers of the League of Legends esports scene with their acquisition of Edward Avgarian, aka Edward. The move made Team Curse the first team to sign a player native to another region, with Edward being an Armenian national, competing in Europe before heading stateside. Over the course of the next 7 years, upwards of 50 players have been brought into the NALCS from different regions. This includes Europeans, South Koreans, Chinese, and Oceanic-based players. The trend has seen incredible players grace the league. Ham Lustboy Chungsik, Henrik Fragen Hansen, and Chung Impact Yeonyung have all plied their trades in the US over the years, with perhaps the most famous, Soren Bjergsen Bjerg, becoming a TSM legend along the way. The import crisis is not without its problems. Many have complained that the US teams rely too heavily on foreign players, not giving enough opportunities to local talent to develop. Veteran mid laner Eugene Pobelter Park took aim at LCS teams in late 2019, calling the hunt for import players a baffling obsession. Ultimately, no one can lay the blame at Edward or Team Curse for how the system has developed, but there's no doubting that this move in 2013 changed the shape of competitive League of Legends forever. TSM, Team House. Nowadays, each and every LCS, LCK, LPL, and LEC team has either a team house or an office with several apartments scattered nearby to house their playing staff. This, of course, wasn't always the case. TSM takes the plaudits for taking the bold first step into bringing their players together with the introduction of their gaming house in New York back in 2011. The idea was to replicate Korean StarCraft houses that had been successful in the past. And while it did lead to improvements, there were certainly some hurdles to overcome. Amongst other things, top laner Marcus Darius Hill nearly caused a fire while leaving food to cook for too long in the microwave, while jungler Brian the Odd One Wiley developed fairly severe health issues from his diet of soda and junk food. Thankfully, almost a decade later, standards have improved. The vast majority of teams now keep nutritionists, cleaners, and even psychologists on staff to look after the players both physically and mentally. Now, TSM themselves have announced a new $13 million facility in LA. The 25,000 square foot building includes office space, streaming rooms, training rooms, and an on-site gym. Not bad, especially when compared to their first attempt all those years ago. Mid lane funnel. First appearing in Chinese solo queue games, the funnel strategy took the tail end of 2018 by storm. The funnel is essentially everything that it claims to be. Teams figured out that they can dump resources into a single player on certain champions, and bank on them winning the match almost entirely on their own. The idea started out with Master Yi, but quickly evolved to include a variety of hyper carries including Kai'Sa, Xayah, and Lucian. When implemented correctly, the funnel caused absolute chaos from solo queue all the way to the highest leagues in competitive play. Master Yi and Kai'Sa very quickly rose to the top of the ban list, while some targeted the supports that best activated this strategy, like Braum and Taric. This was initially a strategy thought up by elo boosters to quickly and efficiently win games against players below them in skill level. On a professional level, despite early excitement at a new strategy, it ultimately led to being fairly boring for spectators. Riot Games responded quickly by nerfing the amount of gold that was possible to funnel into one character, and despite a very brief resurgence in early 2019, the funnel strategy seems to have been largely killed off. Still, I imagine many players from Iron to Challenger still have nightmares about those 20-0 Master Yis running towards them. Samsung White 2014 Vision. The 2014 League of Legends World Championship was one of the most strategic and macro-focused worlds that we've ever seen. Matches were won and lost at the drop of a single ward or with the best use of a sweeper. Pioneering the Vision game was South Korean team Samsung Galaxy White. They had qualified as the second seed from Korea alongside sister team Samsung Galaxy Blue. And it was Samsung Galaxy Blue that was expected to be the dominant force of the competition. But support player Cho Mata Se-hyung and jungler Choi Dandy In-kyu clearly had other ideas. Combined with their outstanding preparation and draft phase, the two players were always given the tools they needed to establish complete map dominance. As a duo, they worked together to forcibly gain control of key positions on the map, as well as the opposing jungle. Not only did they play superior vision, but the team also dedicated more resources to defending that very same vision, something that wasn't being prioritized by many teams at the tournament. Their dedication to the vision game paid dividends, as Samsung White became world champions while only dropping 2 games throughout their entire run. And one of those was pretty troll. ROX Tigers Misfortune support. While facing off against SK Telecom T1, you're going to need to bring something different to the table. Something good enough to take down the legendary Lee Faker Sunghyuk and his teammates. And that's exactly what ROX Tigers support Kang Gorilla Byung-hyung did at Worlds 2016 when he locked in Misfortune support. Initially billed as a misclick, it quickly dawned on SKT and viewers at home that the Misfortune pick was a pocket pick that had been kept hidden away until they needed it most. Down 1 game at World Semifinals, Misfortune worked well on 2 fronts: the counter to the popular support pick Zyra, and to combine spectacularly with Ashe in a fashion similar to the classic Curse of the Sad bullet time combo from Season 3. And despite the lack of mobility and peel, Misfortune provided enough burst and poke damage in the bottom lane, it actually ended up being a surprisingly valuable selection. Gorilla pulled out the Misfortune pick twice in a row before SKT wised up and started banning the champion. It wasn't enough for ROX Tigers to secure the win in the series, but it showcased the creativity of the lineup and the potential for the support champion pool to grow beyond the conventional picks. The idea of a marksman support clearly excited someone over at Riot Games, as the company went on to release Senna 3 years later. Despite not sharing many similarities in abilities and utility, we do wonder if Senna would have ever been thought up had Gorilla not made that iconic pick in 2016. Double Jungle. The birth of the Double Jungle is often disputed, with some saying that even as far back as the beta, Double Jungle was being tried out. But the truth is that the strategy has been on the periphery of professional play throughout multiple metas. Just like how no one ever really quits League of Legends, it just goes away for a while. One of the most notable implementations of the Double Jungle was during the lane swap meta, when top laners realized that going to their lane meant an inevitable tower dive and subsequent death. They learned that their source of experience would have to come from somewhere else. This wasn't a true double jungle, as eventually the map would even itself out, but it did involve top laners and junglers holding hands throughout the first and sometimes even second clear of the jungle. A true double jungle has yet to be tested in a serious onstage setting. Supermassive out of Turkey did bring out a Lee Sin Kai'Sa double jungle after they had already locked in first place in the group stage, but they lost dramatically to Kaboom Esports. So it's perhaps a little while yet before we see a team fully embrace the power of the jungle duo. Most recently, players once again started flirting with the idea of double jungle in the preseason prior to Season 10. It didn't get much traction and has once again been shelved for the time being, but never count out the double jungle. It could be back at any moment. That's going to be it for our top 10 innovations that changed the way we play League of Legends today. If you enjoyed the video, then please hit that like, comment, and subscribe button to be notified of more videos just like this. Also, don't forget to check out proguides.com, where we have challenger coaches available 24/7 to take your gameplay to the next level. That's all for today, and I'll see you guys on the Rift.